Well, good morning. It is Monday morning, April the 27th. It's good to be back for another week of school. And it is a beautiful Monday morning. I just finished biking into work and it was just a fabulous bike ride. The sun is shining, the birds are singing. It is a really, really good day, and it looks like it's going to be a good day all the way through. And this morning I just want to start you off with our verse of the day, which comes from Psalm 46, verse 10. It is a good verse. It's one of my favorite Psalms, one of my favorite verses, and here it is. So Psalm 46, verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." So let that be our prayer today. I want you guys to be still, know that God is there, that He will be exalted, that He is exalted, and that He is in control of all things. So that's what we want to focus on today, and let's get into our lesson for the day. Before we get into exactly what we want to talk about today, I do want to say that I really enjoyed reading the interviews that you guys did with your various cancer patients. As a cancer survivor myself, it is encouraging to read the stories of what other people have gone through and how they have dealt with it, and what kinds of things they went through, and it's just encouraging at times. I mean, some of them don't always have positive results, but we can learn from that as well. What we want to look at today is a few different things from chapter 1 out of the booklet, and your assignment at the end of this lesson is going to be to read chapter 1 out of the booklet that you can find on Connect. The first thing we want to talk about is the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, I know last year in grade 11 you were supposed to do a unit on waves. I don't think you got there last year, but the electromagnetic spectrum deals with electromagnetic waves. Now, in case you didn't cover it last year, the first thing you need to know is that a wave is simply a vibration that is propagated, that is moved through a medium. All right, and that medium can be air, it can be water, it can be a spring, a string, a rope, anything, okay? Anything that you can create a pulse in, a disturbance that moves energy through the medium. All right, and so electromagnetic wave is a vibration that is produced by the acceleration of a charged particle, okay? Most likely an electron. All right, and so here on the screen you see the electromagnetic spectrum, and as it goes from left to right, I think it's your left to right, but as it goes from this end to this end, we have a variety of different kinds of electromagnetic waves, all the way from radio waves on the far left side to that have wavelengths that are really large, all the way to the other end where we see some X-rays, soft X-rays, hard X-rays, and finally gamma rays on the far right side down here. And those are high energy waves. You can see the energy scale right along the bottom here. There's an energy scale about how much energy these waves are transmitting, because that's what a wave does. It transfers energy from one place to another place. And so here you can see how much energy is being transferred by the waves from a very small amount on the left-hand side to a very large amount on the right-hand side. The scale, the unit that they're using there is the electron volt. And an electron volt is simply a unit of energy that is the amount of energy that one electron would gain when it is accelerated through 1 volt of potential difference. And so that's all that is. And again, you can see that there's some very large numbers at this and some very large amounts of energy that are being transferred with things like gamma rays and X-rays. So that's the electromagnetic spectrum. Again, there's a little bit more information in the booklet on it. This diagram is from the booklet, and so you can take a look at it as you read. The other thing we want to just briefly touch on is the 3 diagnostic technologies that use radiation. And again, as you did your interviews, you would have heard about some of these machines, some of these tests being done to diagnose cancers. And so we have the 3 big ones are X-rays, CT scans, and what are called PET scans. And X-rays are by far the most common one, and it's often the very first thing that will get prescribed to check something out that is within you. X-rays is just simply just short for X radiation, and it's simply a lower energy amount of radiation that is sent through your body to take a picture of your body. And as the radiation, as the X-rays pass through your body, it passes through the soft tissue, it reflects off of the hard tissue, so it doesn't go through bones, but it does go through your soft tissues, and there's a screen on the back side of you, and that picks up the X-rays that have gone through, and in that way gives you a picture of yourself. Because it's fairly low energy and low amounts of radiation, you can get lots of X-rays done in your lifetime, and that's why airports use X-ray machines and dentists use X-ray machines, and you can get lots of them done because the risk of getting something from an X-ray, from having tissue damage from an X-ray, is really, really low. And so you can have lots of X-rays in the course of a year without having any damage done to your healthy tissues. A CT scan also uses X radiation. It's just a much higher dose, and so if they want to get a better picture of what's going on inside of you, they will use a CT scan. Now, a CT scan does two things that are different. One is it uses a higher energy X-ray. The second thing it takes a two-dimensional scan of you. And so if you've ever been in a CT scan machine, it looks like a big donut, and you go through the middle of the donut, and it takes a slice. It takes pictures and slices of you, and then it puts those slices together, which gives you a two-dimensional picture. With an X-ray, you're just getting a picture. So if you had a tumor in your chest and you had an X-ray of it, it would show you that you had a tumor wherever it might be. Okay, and it would just be left, right, up, down. It would be all you could see. All right. In a CT scan, you would also be able to know how deep it is into your body. It would tell you where exactly that is, not just left, right, up, down, but also how far into you that tumor is. It would give you the exact placement of it. CT scans use a higher level radiation, and so they are used a little more sparingly because, again, with all uses of radiation, there are benefits, but as we learned, there are also some damage that is caused to your healthy tissues whenever radiation is being passed through your body. And so you want to be careful with that. One of the other things you should take note of as you read is that there's always a balance between the use of radiation and the clarity of the picture you're going to get. With an X-ray, you get a pretty good picture, but not great. With the CT scan, you get a much better picture, but you're using a much higher amount of radiation. And so you want to be careful with how much radiation is going through your healthy tissues, because radiation will damage your tissue, your healthy tissue. And that's why we see some side effects. Some of you had talked about side effects in your interviews. When radiation goes into and through your body, it causes damage to healthy tissue, and that's where we see the side effects coming in. All right, now PET scans. PET scans are really kind of cool. I did not, as a cancer survivor, I did not have to have a PET scan, but my son Joel, when he went through his cancer treatments, he did get a PET scan. A PET scan looks specifically for cancerous cells. Cancerous cells, as I talked about the other day, are higher energy cells. They use more energy, and the most common form of energy in our bodies is sugars. And so what a PET scan does is you get injected with a radioactive dye that includes glucose. And that radioactive dye will attach itself to cells that are using more energy. So the high energy, the high users of glucose is where that radioactive dye will attach itself to. And then you go through a PET scanning machine, and the PET scan machine is now looking for areas where that dye has congregated together, and it'll show up as brighter spots on the PET scan. And in your booklet, you'll be able to see a picture of sort of what the PET scanner looks like and what a PET scan looks like. This is, again, not something that's used on a regular basis, because with this one now, you're putting a radioactive dye into your body. The radioactive dye they use is fluorine. It's a fairly common one, and the reason they use fluorine is because it has a short half-life, which means that it doesn't stay in your body very long. And so that's important too, because you don't want to leave a radioactive material inside of your body for a very long period of time, because again, it will cause damage to healthy tissue. So, as you read the booklet, I want you to take note of these are the 3 diagnostic machines that use radiation. So I want you to learn a little bit about them, the basics of it, sort of how they work, and just sort of take note of that. Now, this leads us to our new segment on and what I want to talk to you about here is scientific fraud. Scientific fraud happens all the time, and scientists make claims that they want to hear sometimes. Back in 1903, and again, you can read a little bit about this in your booklet, but in 1903, there was a researcher that thought he had found another type of radiation, and he called it N rays. N for Nancy, the hometown of his in France, and he thought he had found these N rays, and he published his paper, and got lots of good reviews, and there were lots of other researchers that agreed with him. However, there was one particular researcher from the US that didn't agree with him, and he challenged this French scientist on it, and did some things, and eventually found out that this French scientist was completely getting results that he wanted to get because he was, whatever you want to call it, fudging his results. And he's not the first scientist, not the last scientist to do it. There's even a story back about Isaac Newton making some assumptions and some claims that just didn't exist to prove one of his theories. And so these scientific blunders, as they call them, happen all the time. And so when you hear scientific claims, you always got to take them with a little bit of a grain of salt. There's a quote that scientists often say, and that is, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence to back them up. And so scientists make mistakes all the time. Scientists get the results that they want to get sometimes because they're blinded by what they want to get. And so there you go. That's it for today. Your assignment is to read chapter 1 in your booklet, to take note again of how X-rays, CT scans, and PET scans work. And after that, we will move on into the next section of the booklet. So I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.